Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. I use a Carvin M68 microphone. It's a great mic, but it doesn't have a switch. So I figured I'd go online and get me a switch. Now this is great. Heavy duty switch, metal box, but almost $80? Come on. It's only a switch and some wires. So I figured I'd make my own. And here's how it works. Here I've taken an XLR cable and I've cut it. And I have 3 leads. I've taken the 2 red leads and connected them to one lug, the 2 blue leads and connected them to the other lug, and taken the ground lead and just connected it together. So now when I push this switch, these 2 leads will be shorted, and that will mute the microphone that's connected to this XLR cable. When I press it again, that short will go away and the normal signals will travel through the cable. Now I'm using this. It's a bit of an overkill, but it's just what I have, and it's a push on, push off switch. But I could just have easily used this switch. This is also a push on and push off switch. Here we have the case parts. These 4 parts are 1/4 inch thick MDF. These 2 parts are 3/4 inch thick wood, and these 3 parts are 5/8 inch thick wood. The top is 5 inches by 3.5. The bottom is also 5 inches by 3.5. The 2 sides are each 4.5 by 1 1/4. The front and back are each 3.5 inches long by 1 1/4 inches high, and these 3 spaces are each 2 inches long by 3/4 inches high. We apply glue to the ends of each one of the spacers, of the 2 spacers we're going to use, and then we place them flat on the ground with the 5/8 inch dimension vertical. We position them so that they're flush with the ends of the side pieces. So we're going to let this set and then continue on. The glue has had time to cure, so I'm going to take the clamps off, and then I'm going to glue the front and back. You notice on the back I've actually drilled 2 holes. They're centered along the height and they're 1 inch apart, so they're 1/2 inch each from the center this way. I've made the holes initially 3/16 of an inch. It depends on what the thickness of the cable is that you use. I'm using cable that's almost 1/4 of an inch in diameter, so this initial setting will work. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this here, and you notice it just about is halfway on the spacer here. So I'm going to glue one there, and I'm going to glue the other one, which has no cuts at all, on the other end, and then glue it and let the glue set. That looks good. Now we'll let the glue set for 1/2 hour. The glue has set, so now I'm going to clamp the top on. And you notice I've cut a hole in the top. It's 1 3/4 inches down and 1 3/4 inches from the side, and it should match the switch you're going to use. And I'm going to let the glue set for 1/2 hour. I've cut an additional 3/4 inch wide piece of wood, 2 inches long, and I've made a 10-degree angle here. I'm going to take the bottom of the case and I'm going to glue it just like that, about in the middle. It doesn't have to be exact. I've just put the glue on the angled side, and now I'm going to place it with the wider piece at the end. This is going to serve as a foot, which is going to allow this to sit at an angle. I'll let that cure for about 1/2 hour. The glue has set on the foot, and now I can take this final spacer piece and glue it here. And I'm gluing it on the same side that I'm gluing the foot. And this one I want to be exact, so I'm going to measure it. And I'm going to let the glue set for 1/2 hour. The glue has set, so we can remove the clamps. Here is our unit. The glue has also set on this spacer piece on the bottom of the case. And now we'll notice that the spacer goes in just like that. And the reason for these two spacers is so we can drill a hole through the spacers, and those spacers will clamp down on the cable that goes through, and therefore we won't need a strain relief other than that. So the first thing we need to do before we can do that is to screw the bottom to the top of the case. So I'm going to measure 3/8 of an inch, which is half the thickness of the sides, and I'm going to draw a line. Then I'm going to measure up 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and down 1 inch here, and 1 inch here. I've countersunk and drilled the holes, and here they are in the case. I've also enlarged these so that they go through easier. Now I've installed the 4 screws that attaches the bottom to the rest of the case. Now I can proceed to drill these holes. I have a scrap of cable that I'm going to use, and I'm going to measure its diameter with the set of calipers, and it's just a little less than 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to open up the box again and show you what I've done. So as you can see, I've created 2 ridges in the spacers such that when I clamp them down, it will hold the wire in place. However, I need for the wire to go through easily here. So I'm going to drill that out. And that looks pretty good. Let's give it a try. And as you see, it's going to rest on here. And when I put this down, and when I put the bottom on and screw it on, it's going to be impossible to move it. Now, in order to make this look pretty, I'm going to round over all of the MDF corners with a 1/4 inch round over. And then I'm going to sand the ends so that everything is flush. So I've rounded the case over, and I've sanded it flush. And before I put in the switch and the cables, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to use a black paint to finish it. I'll let that dry and we'll see how it works. Here's the completed unit. I've painted it, and I've made a little label, MicMute. I glued it on there with a glue stick and then put some transparent plastic over it to protect it. Mounted the switch, mounted the 2 cables. As you can see, we have the blue and red wires attached to separate lugs on the switch, and the ground wire attached to itself. And again, this piece acts as the strain relief so that when I hold it there and try to pull it, it's not going to move.